Welcome to Empathy Stories, where acts of bravery, compassion, and hope come to life. Today, we journey with Ethan Brooks, a young fisherman whose courage during a storm saves a family and transforms his future. This story will inspire you with its powerful lessons of resilience, gratitude, and redemption. The relentless rain battered the coastline, turning the horizon into a gray haze. Ethan Brooks, an 18-year-old fisherman, adjusted the hood of his worn jacket as he prepared his father's small fishing boat for another evening on the water. His hands, calloused and strong from years of labor, moved with precision as he checked the nets and ropes. The sea had been unkind lately, and each trip seemed to yield less than the last. Ethan's mind was weighed down, not just by the stormy skies but by the storm brewing at home. His father, once the pillar of their family, lay gravely ill in a hospital bed. Medical bills loomed over them like an unrelenting tide, threatening to drown any sense of hope. Ethan's mother worked double shifts at a diner, her hands raw from endless hours of labor, while his younger siblings, Emily and Luke, tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy despite their shared worry. The roar of the waves was suddenly interrupted by a piercing screech. Ethan looked up sharply, his sharp brown eyes narrowing as he spotted a sleek black car skidding on the wet coastal road above. Time seemed to slow as the vehicle swerved violently, its tires failing to find grip on the rain-slick asphalt. With a deafening crash, it shattered the guardrail and plunged into the churning sea below. "No!" Ethan shouted, his voice swallowed by the storm. Without a second thought, he abandoned his boat and dove into the icy water. The cold struck him like 1,000 needles, stealing his breath and numbing his limbs. But years of experience at sea pushed him forward. His arms cut through the waves with determination, every stroke fueled by instinct and desperation. As he approached the sinking vehicle, he could see a figure through the fogged windows, a woman, her head slumped against the steering wheel. Panic surged through him. She wasn't moving. "Hold on!" Ethan gasped, his voice lost in the roar of the storm. He fumbled at his belt and pulled out the small anchor he always carried, a relic from his father's boat. With a surge of adrenaline, he smashed it against the car window. The first strike cracked the glass, and the second shattered it completely, allowing a rush of freezing water to flood the interior. Ethan reached inside, his hands trembling as he struggled to unfasten the woman's seatbelt. It was then he noticed her swollen belly. She was pregnant. "Please," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Don't give up." The seatbelt was stuck, and the pressure of the water made every movement agonizing. Ethan's fingers slipped against the wet fabric, but he yanked with all his strength until it finally tore free. Wrapping one arm around her, he cradled her head to keep it above the rising water and kicked furiously toward the surface. His muscles screamed in protest. His lungs burned for air, but he refused to give in, breaking through the waves. Ethan gulped in precious air, his vision blurring from exhaustion. On the shore, distant figures were gathering, their voices faint against the storm's fury. Sirens pierced the air, growing louder with each passing second. But Ethan's focus remained on the woman in his arms. "You're safe," he murmured, his voice hoarse as he dragged her toward the shore. "Both of you." When they reached the sand, Ethan collapsed beside her, his chest heaving as he fought to catch his breath. With trembling hands, he checked her vital signs, relief flooding through him when she coughed up water and gasped for air. "The baby," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're going to be okay," Ethan reassured her, gripping her hand tightly. The flashing lights of an ambulance painted the rain-soaked beach in hues of red and blue. Paramedics rushed to the scene, wrapping the woman in blankets and administering oxygen. Ethan sat back, his wet clothes clinging to him and his body trembling from the cold. A man's voice cut through the chaos. "Amanda!" Ethan turned to see a tall man in a drenched suit sprinting toward them, his face a mixture of terror and relief. The man fell to his knees beside the woman, cradling her face in his hands. "Robert," she whispered, her eyes fluttering open. The man's gaze shifted to Ethan, taking in his threadbare clothes and bleeding knuckles. You saved them, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan nodded, his exhaustion making it difficult to speak. I did what I could. Robert Hayes, a man whose name was synonymous with wealth and power, extended his hand. I owe you everything. My wife, my child. You saved them both. Thank you doesn't feel like enough. What's your name? Ethan Brooks, he replied simply, his voice steady despite the overwhelming moment. Ethan, Robert repeated, as though committing it to memory. If there's anything I can do for you, anything at all, you just need to say the word. Before Ethan could respond, a paramedic approached, insisting he be checked for shock and injuries. As they guided him to the ambulance, Ethan glanced back at the ocean. The waves had already swallowed the car, erasing the evidence of the storm's violence. He didn't know it yet, but this act of bravery, born out of instinct and desperation, would ripple far beyond this moment. It would not only alter the lives of Robert and Amanda Hayes, but also bring a glimmer of hope to Ethan's struggling family and a future he had never dared to imagine. The fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room cast a sterile glow over the small space where Ethan sat, his hands wrapped in bandages and his damp clothes clinging to his skin. The adrenaline that had driven him earlier was gone, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion. Yet, his mind wasn't still. He thought of his father lying in another wing of the hospital, unaware of what had just transpired. The weight of his family's struggles pressed heavily on his shoulders. The door creaked open, and Robert Hayes stepped in. His typically composed demeanor was replaced by an expression of vulnerability. Gone was the billionaire who commanded boardrooms. Here stood a man who had almost lost everything. Ethan, Robert began, his voice soft but steady. Amanda and the baby are stable. Because of you. Ethan nodded, his gaze fixed on the floor. I'm glad they're okay. Robert hesitated, then pulled up a chair to sit beside Ethan. You saved my family. Ethan, I'll never forget that. Please, let me help you. Whatever you need, medical bills, schooling, you name it. Ethan's pride bristled at the word help. He had been raised to believe in earning his way, not accepting handouts. But as he looked at Robert's sincere expression, the image of his father hooked up to machines flashed in his mind, followed by the exhaustion on his mother's face and the quiet hunger in his siblings' eyes. There is something, Ethan said, his voice low, but it's not charity. I just need a chance, a job, an opportunity to work and earn what I need to take care of my family. Robert's eyes softened, understanding lighting his expression. A chance is what you'll get. A week later, Ethan stood at the base of the Hayes Enterprises skyscraper, a towering monument of glass and steel that sparkled in the sunlight. The world within these walls felt foreign, a stark contrast to the salty docks and weathered boats of his past. Clad in his best clothes, a threadbare dress shirt, and slightly too small slacks, he felt out of place. Yet, he squared his shoulders and stepped inside, determined to make good on his promise to himself and his family. The lobby was a sea of marble and glass, buzzing with the purposeful energy of polished professionals. Ethan's calloused hands clenched nervously as he approached the reception desk. A woman with sleek blonde hair and an air of efficiency greeted him. Mr. Brooks, she asked, her voice crisp. I'm Rachel. Mr. Hayes is expecting you. She led him to a private elevator that soared to the 30th floor, each passing second heightening his anxiety. When the doors opened, Ethan was greeted by a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Robert stood by his desk, looking out over the horizon. Ethan, Robert said, turning with a warm smile. I'm glad you came. Thank you for this opportunity. Mr. Hayes, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the nerves roiling inside him. Call me Robert, he replied, gesturing for Ethan to sit. I've thought a lot about what you did that day. You're not just brave. Ethan, you're determined. That's a rare quality, and it's exactly what my company needs. Ethan listened intently as Robert explained the role he had created for him in the logistics department. You'll start with the basics, Robert said. Learn the ropes, work hard, and prove yourself. If you do, there's no limit to how far you can go. I won't let you down, Ethan said, his voice firm. I know you won't, Robert replied. Then, after a brief pause, he added, about your father's treatment, I've arranged for him to be transferred to a private hospital. The best doctors will ensure he gets the care he needs. Ethan's vision blurred as tears welled in his eyes. He fought to keep his composure, overwhelmed by gratitude. Thank you, he whispered. I don't know how to repay you. Robert smiled. You already did. You saved my family. Now, let me help save yours. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan dove headfirst into his new role, immersing himself in the intricacies of supply chains and shipping logistics. The work was foreign and challenging, but he approached each task with the same determination that had driven him into the stormy sea. Not everyone welcomed him warmly. Some colleagues viewed him with suspicion, whispering about the charity case who had been given a job by the boss. Daniel Pierce, a senior manager in logistics, seemed particularly eager to test Ethan's resolve. You think you belong here, kid? Daniel sneered one afternoon, leaning over Ethan's desk. You're just a fisherman. You'll never understand this world. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he refused to rise to the bait. Instead, he focused on the task before him, his quiet determination speaking louder than words. Each night, Ethan returned home exhausted but hopeful. His father's condition began to improve under the new treatment, and the lines of worry on his mother's face softened. Emily and Luke started dreaming of futures they had once thought impossible. Their laughter a balm to Ethan's weary spirit. Though the road ahead was steep, Ethan knew he was building something real, not just for himself, but for his family. The chance Robert had given him wasn't just an opportunity. It was a lifeline, and Ethan was determined to hold on to it with all his strength. Weeks turned into months as Ethan Brooks embraced his new life at Hayes Enterprises. The office, once an alien world of sleek desks and endless spreadsheets, began to feel familiar. Ethan adapted quickly, drawing on his innate resourcefulness and work ethic. He tackled each task with diligence, studying shipping routes and supply chains as if they were the tides and currents he had once navigated at sea. At first, the whispers about the charity hire lingered in the air, especially from Daniel Pierce, who seemed determined to undermine him. You're out of your depth, Brooks, Daniel sneered one afternoon. You don't belong here. Ethan clenched his fists under the desk, but refused to let the taunts break him. Instead, he let his work speak for itself, staying late to analyze reports and solve problems. Slowly, the tide of opinion began to shift. Some colleagues, initially skeptical, started to respect his tenacity and results. Robert Hayes became a steady mentor, guiding Ethan through challenges with a calm confidence that inspired him. You don't have to prove anything to anyone but yourself, Robert told him during one of their meetings. Those words became Ethan's anchor on tough days when the weight of his responsibilities threatened to overwhelm him. At home, the transformation was even more profound. Ethan's father, now receiving top-tier medical care, began to recover. Ricardo Brooks, once gaunt and frail, grew stronger by the day. His voice, once a faint whisper, returned with a strength that brought tears to Ethan's eyes. His mother, Mariana, smiled more often, the lines of exhaustion easing from her face. Emily and Luke, inspired by their brother's progress, started to dream big, their laughter filling the once somber house. Despite the progress, Ethan's humility remained intact. He worked tirelessly not for accolades, but for the promise of a better future. That resolve became a cornerstone of his identity, a lesson he hoped his siblings would carry forward. One rainy afternoon, Robert called Ethan into the conference room. The large screen displayed a proposal for a sustainable fishing initiative, designed to support small coastal communities. Ethan stared at the screen in astonishment. This was inspired by your story, Robert explained. We're creating a partnership to help families like yours, providing resources and opportunities for coastal communities to thrive. Ethan's chest tightened as emotion swept over him. You're doing this because of me? Robert nodded, his expression warm. Because of the strength and resilience you've shown. It's time we extend that to others who need it. For the first time in years, Ethan allowed himself to dream, not just for his family, but for the countless others who would benefit from this initiative. The boy who had once fought to save his family from drowning in hardship was now a young man helping others rise above their struggles. When Ricardo finally returned home from the hospital, it was a clear, starry night. Ethan helped his father out of the car, steadying him as they walked to the front door. Ricardo's steps were slow, but his pride in his son was evident in every movement. "You've given us a second chance, Ethan," Ricardo said, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan embraced his father tightly. "We've done this together, Papa." As they stepped inside, the sight of his family, his mother's tears of joy, Emily and Luke's bright smiles, filled Ethan's heart with gratitude. This was the life he had fought for, the future he had dared to hope for. In the months that followed, Ethan continued to grow, both in his role at Hayes Enterprises and in his community. The fishing initiative launched to great success, bringing much-needed resources to struggling coastal towns. Ethan's work became a bridge between his past and present, a way to honor his roots while building a brighter future. Through it all, Ethan learned a profound truth. Life's hardest storms often lead to the most beautiful horizons. With resilience, courage, and a willingness to embrace change, he had transformed his family's story and his own. Now, he stood ready to face whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that he belonged, and that his future was his to shape. Ethan's journey is a testament to the power of resilience and selflessness. Faced with the daunting responsibilities of supporting his family, Ethan takes a leap of faith to save Amanda and her unborn child, risking his life without a second thought. His bravery in the face of adversity shows that true strength lies not in what we achieve for ourselves, but in the sacrifices we make for others. Through his determination and willingness to learn, Ethan proves that hard work and integrity can bridge even the widest gaps between opportunity and circumstances. Robert Hayes exemplifies the transformative power of gratitude and empathy. As a man of immense wealth and influence, Robert could have easily provided Ethan with a simple reward and moved on. Instead, he recognizes Ethan's potential and offers him a chance to change his life. Robert's mentorship demonstrates the importance of using privilege not just to uplift others, but to inspire lasting change. His trust in Ethan and his decision to create initiatives for coastal communities show how compassion can extend beyond personal gratitude to create a ripple effect of positivity. Though her role is less central, Amanda represents the fragility and value of life. Her vulnerability during the accident serves as a catalyst for the story's events, reminding us of the interconnectedness of our lives. Amanda's gratitude and quiet presence highlight the profound impact of Ethan's actions and the ripple effect of kindness. Together, their stories remind us that courage, empathy, and the willingness to embrace change can lead to transformative growth, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Thank you for joining us on Ethan's remarkable journey of bravery, transformation, and hope. His story reminds us that even in life's darkest storms, acts of kindness and resilience can lead to brighter horizons. If this tale touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Empathy Stories for more inspiring narratives. See you next time.